What happens when you haven't seen your son for 10 years, and he suddenly walks onto a live television stage while you're in the middle of an interview? Stop the tape. Dr. Phil's voice cut through the studio like a knife. The cameras froze. The audience gasped. And on that stage, a father saw his son for the first time in a decade, not in a quiet room, not in private, but in front of millions. What happened in the next 7 minutes would become the most watched moment in Dr. Phil history. The interview had started normally enough. Robert Williams, 56, had come to the show to talk about forgiveness and moving forward after family trauma. He sat in the guest chair, composed but visibly carrying weight on his shoulders. "Robert, you reached out to us 6 months ago," Dr. Phil began, leaning forward in that way he does when he knows there's more to the story. "You said you wanted to talk about regret. Tell me what you mean." Robert's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his microphone. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. And I don't know how to fix it." Dr. Phil nodded, his expression shifting from curiosity to focused attention. "What was the mistake?" "I abandoned my son." The words hung in the air like smoke. 10 years ago. He was 18. We had a fight. I told him I was done being his father. The audience went completely silent. "What was the fight about?" Dr. Phil asked, his tone gentle but direct. Robert's voice cracked. "He wanted to be an artist. I wanted him to be a lawyer like me. I said if he walked out that door to go to art school, he wasn't my son anymore." He paused, tears forming. "He walked out. And I never called. Never reached out. I let 10 years go by." Dr. Phil studied him for a long moment. "Have you tried to contact him since?" "Every day for the past year," Robert admitted. "Letters returned. Calls blocked. His mother, we're divorced, she won't give me his address. She says he doesn't want to see me. And I don't blame him." But what Robert didn't know was that backstage, his son Marcus was watching on a monitor. The producers had found Marcus 3 weeks earlier. It had taken careful conversations, therapy sessions with the show's counselors, and finally, Marcus's decision. "I'll come. But I want to hear what he says first. I want to know if he's really sorry, or if this is just another performance." Dr. Phil leaned back. "Robert, if your son was watching right now, what would you say to him?" Robert looked directly at the camera, his voice breaking. "Marcus, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I put my ego, my pride, my stupid expectations ahead of loving you. You were brave enough to chase your dream, and I punished you for it. I'm the one who failed. Not you. Never you." In the backstage monitor room, Marcus was crying. "I need to go out there," he told the producer. "I need to. I can't just watch this." The producer's eyes widened. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't planned. But she saw the look on Marcus's face, 10 years of pain meeting 10 years of longing, and she made a decision. "Hold on," she said, grabbing her headset. "Dr. Phil, we have a situation. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead." On stage, Dr. Phil touched his earpiece, listening. His expression shifted instantly. He held up his hand to the cameras. "Stop the tape," he said firmly. The entire studio froze. Cameras stopped moving. The audience looked confused. Robert looked panicked. "What's happening?" Robert asked. Dr. Phil stood up and walked to the edge of the stage, looking toward the wings. Then he turned back to Robert, and his voice was different, softer, more personal. "Robert, I need to tell you something. And I need you to stay exactly where you are." Robert's face went pale. "Is something wrong? Is Marcus okay?" "He's fine," Dr. Phil said. "In fact." He paused, and the studio seemed to hold its breath. "He's here." The words didn't register at first. "What?" Robert stood up, his legs shaking. "Your son is here. Backstage. He's been watching this whole interview. And he wants to come out." Robert's hand went to his chest. He's here? Right now? Dr. Phil nodded, and for the first time in his career, he broke every protocol in television. He walked over to Robert and put a hand on his shoulder, not as a host, but as a person. I'm going to give you a choice, Dr. Phil said quietly, but the microphones caught every word. We can turn the cameras off. We can do this privately. Or if you're both willing, we can let this moment be seen. Not for ratings. Not for drama. But because there are millions of fathers and sons out there who need to see that reconciliation is possible. Robert was crying now, openly, his whole body shaking. I don't care about the cameras. I just want to see my son. Dr. Phil looked toward the wings and nodded. And then Marcus Williams walked onto the stage. He was 28 now, but Robert saw the boy he remembered, the teenager who'd stood in their living room 10 years ago, suitcase in hand, choosing his dreams over his father's approval. Marcus stopped about 10 feet away, his hands trembling at his sides. Father and son stared at each other across the stage, and the studio was so silent you could hear the air conditioning. No one moved. No one spoke. The world seemed to stop. Dr. Phil stepped back, giving them space. The cameras, though technically still recording, felt invisible. This wasn't a TV moment anymore. This was human. Hi, Dad, Marcus finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Robert's face crumpled. Marcus. Oh God, Marcus. I'm so angry at you. Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. I've been angry for 10 years. I know. You should be. But I also... Marcus's voice broke. I also really missed you. That was the moment Robert moved. He crossed the stage in 3 steps and pulled his son into his arms. Marcus resisted for exactly 1 second, one final heartbeat of 10 years' worth of pain, and then he collapsed into his father's embrace. The studio erupted. The audience was on their feet, crying, applauding, witnessing something that transcended television. Dr. Phil stood to the side, his own eyes wet, letting the moment breathe. Father and son held each other, both sobbing, both saying, I'm sorry, over and over, the words mixing together until they were just sounds of grief and relief and redemption. But Dr. Phil knew this moment needed structure, needed closure. After what felt like hours but was actually about 90 seconds, Dr. Phil gently approached them. He didn't interrupt, he just stood close, and when they finally pulled apart but stayed connected, hands on each other's shoulders, Dr. Phil spoke. Marcus, can I ask you something? Marcus nodded, wiping his face with his sleeve. What made you decide to come out today? Marcus took a shaky breath. I heard him say I was brave. My whole life, I wanted to hear him say I was brave. I wanted him to see me, not what he wanted me to be. He looked at his father. When you said that, when you said I was brave to chase my dream, that's when I knew you finally got it. Robert gripped his son's shoulders tighter. I should have said it 10 years ago. Yeah, Marcus agreed. You should have. But you're saying it now. Dr. Phil reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a white envelope. Marcus, before you came out here, you asked me to give something to your father if the moment felt right. He held out the envelope to Robert. He wanted you to have this. Robert's hands shook as he took it. What is this? Open it, Marcus said softly. Inside was a single photograph, creased and worn, clearly carried for years. It showed a young Marcus, maybe 7 years old, holding up a crayon drawing. And next to him in the photo, beaming with pride, was Robert. On the back, in Marcus's handwriting, were 4 words. You were proud once. Robert lost it completely. He pulled Marcus back into his arms, the photograph clutched between them, and just held on like he was afraid his son would disappear if he let go. Dr. Phil let them have that moment. Then, with the timing that comes from decades of helping people heal, he said, I want to tell you both something. They turned to him, still holding each other. This moment, right here, is exactly what forgiveness looks like. It's messy. It's painful. It doesn't erase the past, but it opens a door to the future. He looked at Robert. You can't get those 10 years back. But you have every day going forward. I know, Robert said. I'm going to do better. I promise I'm going to do better. I'm going to hold you to that, Marcus said, but he was smiling through his tears. Dr. Phil turned to the audience. I want everyone here, and everyone watching at home, to understand something. Reconciliation isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to move forward despite the pain. It takes courage from both people, the courage to apologize and the courage to forgive. The audience gave a standing ovation that lasted 3 full minutes. Dr. Phil looked at the cameras, the ones that had technically been stopped, but had captured every second, and made a decision in real time. We're going to take a break, he announced. When we come back, Robert and Marcus are going to sit down together, and we're going to talk about what happens next. Because this moment is beautiful, but the real work starts now. During the commercial break, Dr. Phil did something he rarely does. He sat with them offstage, not as a host, but as someone who understood the weight of family fractures. I'm proud of both of you, he told them. This took real courage. Marcus looked at him. What if we mess it up again? Dr. Phil smiled. Then you try again. That's what family does. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. When they returned from break, Robert and Marcus sat side by side on the couch, not separated by the coffee table, but together, physically connected. Dr. Phil facilitated a conversation about next steps, family therapy, regular dinners, setting boundaries, rebuilding trust slowly and intentionally. He brought out the show's counselor, who offered resources and guidance. He made sure this wasn't just a TV moment, but the beginning of real healing. As the show ended, Dr. Phil had one final thing to say. I've been doing this show for over 2 decades. I've seen thousands of families in crisis. But today reminded me why I do this work. Because every single person watching this has someone in their life they've lost touch with, someone they need to forgive, or someone they need to ask forgiveness from. He paused. Don't wait 10 years. Don't wait 10 days. Life is too short, and tomorrow is never guaranteed. Months later, the impact was still being felt. The episode had been viewed over 50 million times. The hashtag Don't Wait 10 Years had sparked a global movement of family reconciliations. Dr. Phil's office received thousands of letters from viewers who had reached out to estranged family members after watching. But the most important impact was the one no camera captured. Robert and Marcus had dinner every Sunday. They were building something new, not trying to recreate the past, but creating a different future. Marcus had invited his father to his first art gallery showing. Robert had gone, stood in front of his son's paintings, and wept with pride. I was wrong about so many things, Robert told him that night. But I was most wrong about this. Your art isn't just beautiful, Marcus. It's important. You were always meant to do this. The photograph, the one from the envelope, sat framed in Robert's office. Not hidden away, but prominent, where he saw it every day. A reminder of what pride looked like before ego got in the way. A reminder of what he'd almost lost forever. And on the back, he'd added his own words beneath Marcus's. And I will be proud again. Every day. Forever. Dr. Phil had given them the stage, but they had done the hardest work themselves. Years later, when asked about that episode, Dr. Phil would say, "That wasn't about me. That was about a father and son who were brave enough to be vulnerable in front of the world. They taught everyone watching that it's never too late to say I'm sorry and I love you." The white envelope, the photograph, the 10 years of silence, all of it had led to 7 minutes that changed 2 lives and inspired millions. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk onto a stage and face the person you've hurt. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is open your arms when they do. 3 years after that moment, the ripple effects continued to spread in unexpected ways. Dr. Phil received a letter that he kept in his desk drawer. It was from a man in Ohio who had watched the episode with his own estranged daughter. I picked up the phone the next day. The letter read. We hadn't spoken in 7 years. Now she's getting married, and I'm walking her down the aisle. Thank you for showing me it's never too late. The show's producers reported that the episode had become the most requested in the program's history. Therapists across the country used clips in family counseling sessions. Universities included it in psychology courses about conflict resolution and emotional intelligence. But perhaps the most profound impact was on Robert and Marcus themselves. They had started a podcast together called Second Chances, where they talked openly about their journey, the mistakes, the healing process, the setbacks, and the victories. Thousands of families in similar situations found hope in their honesty. On the third anniversary of the reunion, Marcus posted the original photograph on social media. The caption was simple. 3 years ago, I walked onto a stage scared and angry. Today I have my dad back. Not the dad I wanted him to be when I was 18. The dad he chose to become at 56. Sometimes the best gift is getting a second chance to get it right. Robert commented immediately. And sometimes the best gift is a son who's willing to give that second chance. I love you, Marcus. Dr. Phil saw the post and smiled. He'd built his career on the belief that people can change, that families can heal, and that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than silence. That 7-minute moment on stage had proved him right in the most beautiful way possible.